Welcome back to Breakfast. The government's Housing Affordability report has made plenty of suggestions, including freeing more land for development and putting the onus on councils to get that development going. But does New Zealand simply need to get over its love affair with property as an investment? With us now is Shamubeel Eaqub from the NZIER. Good morning to you, Shamubeel. Can I ask you, first of all, there has been a range of responses to these suggestions. What is your response?
Well, I think any change in regulation that helps bring on new supply when there is demand and sort of reducing that latency in regulation is a good thing. But any of these changes will take a long time to come through, and in and of themselves is not the solution to bringing down house prices.
So is that to say it will do nothing to bring down house prices now, or even when they come into effect?
Well, I think it takes a bit of time for these kinds of supply responses to come through. It's only been in the last couple of years, really, that we've seen house building being very slow. And that's been more because the economy has been weak, people have been not confident enough to invest, and all those bits and pieces. Over time, this should have a positive effect. But I think you've got to step back a little bit and say, for example, in places like Auckland, the reason why house prices have risen is not just because of increasing demand for housing, but also because there's been things like people want to invest in housing because they expect house prices to go up. We have this incredible passion for housing as an investment. So we need to invest in things like financial literacy, but also in terms of just improving our understanding of where to put our money.
Because I guess one of the things it doesn't do is change any of the incentives around property as an investment over any other type of investment. So is it going to change anything in terms of our appetite for investment housing?
Well, I think part of the reason was it was very much a response to the Productivity Commission report, and the recommendations were very focused on Auckland and on the supply side issues. I think that was a little bit short-sighted. So, from the government's response perspective, I think it was about right in terms of what they should have responded to. But I think there's a wider range of things that we need to think about. We need to think about that aspect of the investment side, but also we have to accept that in places like Auckland, where urbanization is very important, where it is the magnet for economic growth and people in New Zealand, we have to give up this quarter-acre dream. We can't have that. So we need to have intensification and densification.
So you actually need to temper people's expectations of what they can afford to live in, given the current prices.
Yeah, I think there is a little bit of that, and there's a change in mindset. We can't all have backyards when we're living in a very large population dense city. You sort of look in places like New York or in London, and you know that the kind of houses we have in New Zealand would be not acceptable because land is just too expensive. So you have to make the most of it. So there's a combination of things that we have to do to be able to respond to the challenge of providing supply to housing, particularly for the lower end, where social housing in particular is a big challenge in places like Auckland.
Well, speaking of supply, we're currently trying to rebuild our second biggest city. Do we have the capacity to ramp up supply in Auckland at the same time?
We should be able to. So the kind of labour that we're using in Canterbury is very different from what you do for building new homes. So in Canterbury, they're using a lot more plasterers, painters, and those kinds of things, which is much more finishing. Whereas in Auckland, we can easily build houses of up to 12,000, 14,000 a year. And what we need to build in Auckland is probably more like 7,500 to 8,000. So I think we have enough capacity, but the fact of the matter is people have to be able to afford it. They have to want to buy houses. And right now, the economy is just too weak to allow that to happen.
Thank you very much, Shamubeel. That is Shamubeel Eaqub, the Principal Economist at the NZIER.